what I bring now to my Court of Appeals position is an ability to really talk to my other judges and now to talk to my justices and to get them to see other points of view, to perhaps, yes, I'm going to be the dissent and I'm in the minority, but maybe I can soften the edges of some
Mm.
opinions. Maybe I can persuade people a little bit to come over to my point of view.
What do you got for me? Yeah, what do you got for me? Baby, would you stand and fight?
Judge Maria Lazar, welcome to my Speakeasy Conversations. It's just a little podcasting studio I put together here in my little basement bar area in my home outside of La Crosse near Holman. But the idea that I try to go for here with my podcast is that I want to give the audience all natural American ideas is the way I talk about it on my podcast. All natural American ideas to me, no additives or preservatives. To me, that means just having conversations with people, just person to person kinds of things. None of the scripted BS you see from corporate media and all that kind of stuff. So again, welcome here. And I saw your announcement video a couple of weeks ago, and I shared that on cooleyconservatives.com as well. I love the way that you put that together and the message that you were giving about becoming our next Supreme Court justice here in the state of Wisconsin. Tell me, what was it that called you into this life of service and specifically serving in the legal capacity?
Well, so it goes a ways back. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It goes a ways back when I was really young. I think fourth grade. I was trying to decide where I wanted to head my life in, and I had a real good goal. I was going to be an archaeologist. Didn't quite work out. I don't like hot areas. Then I looked at some professions that I thought were the more nobler professions that help people. And I had to rule out doctor because, quite frankly, I can't look when they give me a shot. So that one was out. And then my dad was in an area of that's related to the law, and I liked that area. I liked solving puzzles, doing things like that. And I thought this was a way to really give good service back to people and to do something that at the end of the day, at the end of my life, would be meaningful. And so I went into the legal profession.
That's great. I love that. And, it's interesting. I had a couple of weeks ago, some friends who are medics, and they were medics serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, or actually just Iraq, I think it was, or Afghanistan. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But they were medics in combat. And the one of them said how much she loved working in an emergency room. And I was like, holy cow, you're an amazing person, because I couldn't do it. So nice to hear I'm not the only one who has a weak stomach when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can watch it done now. I've gotten a little more attuned to it being a mom. You see all the cuts and bruises, but
Yeah.
it wasn't an area I really thought I could do well. And I read a lot, and I love to write. I love to read. So this was the area.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I like the way you put that too about solving puzzles. As a software engineer in my day job for many years, that was kind of the thing I liked about it too, is just solving puzzles all the time. How can I craft code to help, get through this challenge or that challenge? It's a completely different type of work. When you're, like you said, you're reading all the time to keep up with what's going on, I'm sure, in the legal system, but yeah, very cool.
Yep. And I'm more of the law nerd type. I love reading cases. I love watching oral argument, listening to the U.S. Supreme Court. And it's funny because both my children ended up in the engineering area. So they obviously love puzzles as well. Didn't learn to do the law, but love puzzles and things like that.
Well, yeah, and it reminds me too, my son kind of went through the same thing. He just graduated from UW Law School. And I think he's got the same kind of mindset. It's that idea of not only being of service, but also solving puzzles in service. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how his career evolves over time too.
And that's something and that's a good thing you raised that. That's something people don't really think about when they think about judges. When I was an attorney, you're an advocate for one side or the other. So you're pushing that narrative, you're pushing that point of view. When I switched and became a judge, first on the circuit court, the first thing you had to do was, one, stop thinking like an advocate. And that's harder than you think. And two, you had to look at both sides and sort of get rid of the little arguments that were petty, didn't matter, and I would have raised as an attorney. They
Mm.
just didn't matter to the whole resolution of the issue. And you have to look at the global picture and say, here are the facts, here's the law. How do I make this all work together?
Yeah, I love your mindset on that too. And I remember as I was watching your video, it did impress me the way that you talked about keeping partisan politics out of the legal system. Can you talk a little bit more about why that's important?
So it's actually one of the reasons why I am running for this position on the state Supreme Court. Our last few races, people have the candidates and the state, and actually the parties as well. The political parties have sort of taken over the judicial races and turned them into partisan races and turned them into questions about, do we want to be left? Do we want to be right? Do we want to do this? And that's just so wrong. The whole point about being a judge, especially being a justice, is that whatever I believe, I like to say when I put on my black robe, I sort of hide my own personal views behind
Mm.
it. But whatever I believe doesn't matter. And I think several judges, one of my mentors when I first went on the bench, and actually Chief Justice Roberts on the U.S. Supreme Court said, you're only really a judge when you issue a ruling that you absolutely personally hate. And that's the
Mm.
answer. I'm not out there to say what I want the law to be. There's an old case. I won't quote it for you, law nerd that I am. There's an old case out there that says, we are to say what the law is. And so if you want to change the law, if you want to change the rules, if you want to do anything like that, you go to your other branches of government. That's not us. So what I've seen, sadly, look at 150 or whatever $1 million was spent last year on a race where if you polled everyone in the state of Wisconsin and asked them which of the two candidates was a better judge, which of the two candidates had more qualifications, who went to this school or that school, who has opinions that say this or that, who writes better, who does, no one knows, because that wasn't an issue. It was all outside political money. So when this race opened up, I thought, this is a perfect opportunity for me to continue to serve the public, which is one of the reasons I went from circuit court to the Court of Appeals, to make more of an impact and address the intricacies of the law and issue opinions that didn't just matter in one case, but could be statewide. But this state Supreme Court race is an opportunity to say to everybody in Wisconsin, my home state, I love my state, to say to everybody in this state that we're all good, fair, common sense people, and we want to start putting justices on this court who will not be politically bound, who will not rule in a way where you walk in the courtroom and you know already if you've won or lost. And I thought this was a perfect opportunity to kind of draw that line in the sand and say, let's get back to justice. Let's get back to integrity. And that's why I'm running.
Yeah, I love that. And, that whole idea about focusing on the law, that is such an important thing. And Mike Hipsch and I were talking about it recently in a podcast, actually a couple of podcasts. It keeps coming up. But the way he put it, I thought was really well said, that he would respect judges who say, I really don't like this, but the law is the way it is. So legislature, you should fix this. But this is the way I'm ruling because this is the way it is now.
And that's absolutely funny that you would say that, because when I was on the circuit court, I would do that in some of my written opinions, where I would say the legislature hasn't set, for example, a statute of limitations with respect to a case I had that involved cemeteries, and they hadn't set one. And I specifically said I had to pick between a 4 and a 6. So I picked the one and I said, but the legislature should address this. And now on the Court of Appeals, I'll do footnotes where I'll say, and also I always say, read my footnotes. That's where my best work is. But I'll do footnotes and I'll say, the law says this. I'm not certain that the legislature intended this, but this is what it says. If I'm incorrect in what they intended, then they should address it and not me. And I never would presume to say, I know better than the legislature. They're elected by the public and they write the laws. I just interpret and determine whether they're constitutional. And that's exactly what a judge should do.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not always happy with what you say, because there are things that, quite frankly, don't tell anybody, but the legislature doesn't always say what they mean to say or get it right.
Sure.
No offense.
Well, and that's well said too. I think on the flip side, going the other way, if judges do make laws from the bench, that's a big concern. And I've recently reread now Federalist number 78, where Hamilton was pretty specific about how dangerous the judicial branch can be if it usurps power from the other branches. And I gotta be honest, I'm really concerned. That's kind of where we're going right now. And so God bless you for having the attitude of focusing on just the law, not what your desires for it are.
And that's funny you say that, because I used to go around and I quote that section and say that the public has nothing to fear from the judiciary, but everything to fear when it steps into the legislative roles. And then I was told that that's, like quoting Shakespeare to people, and everyone's eyes kind of
Right.
over. So I put it in a more common sense way to say to people that, you may like the fact that you have a court or a judge or a justice that goes your way and interprets something that's not the way it's written, and because you prevail. You may like that, but you have to worry, because if a court does that, if it's activist in either respect, on either side, they're not only going to find rights that aren't there, but they have the ability to start taking away rights that are there. And I just want people to realize and be concerned that, yes, you win today, but tomorrow, well, now your First Amendment rights are gone, and people can censor you like they're doing in Europe, where if you say the wrong thing, you're just as guilty as if you stab somebody. And that's horrendous. We
Yeah.
have freedom of speech. We don't want to lose that.
Yeah, that's well said. And again, like I said, we see these trends going that way, and it really is scary to me. But God bless you. I mean, that Federalist 78, like you said, nerds like me will call back to those kinds of things. I mean, I've been studying the founding fathers for, oh my gosh, 20 years now. I think I've been reading all this stuff, keeping up with it. It's very interesting stuff. And I want to try to spread more of that knowledge around, because I think it's important for everyone to understand who we are and where we came from in order to keep going forward instead of pivoting and going in the wrong direction. But yeah, no, God bless you for having that attitude about it. Another thing too, like as you're okay, let's just get into like a serious job interview type of question, right? A couple of years from now, what does it look like in the Supreme Court of Wisconsin with Justice Lazar? How are you able to envision your role on the court?
All right. So first of all, what people should know is I am a determined and dedicated worker. I get up every morning at 6 o'clock. I work really hard. I don't have to anymore. I'm not on a bench per se, but Justice Lazar, in 2 years on that court, will have brought something to the state Supreme Court that I think they need. And I admit, we're not switching it from 4 to 3. It's going to stay 4 to 3. But what I think I'm going to bring, and what I bring now to my Court of Appeals position, is an ability to really talk to my other judges, and now to talk to my justices, and to get them to see other points of view, to perhaps, yes, I'm going to be the dissent and I'm in the minority, but maybe I can soften the edges of some opinions. Maybe I can persuade people a little bit to come over to my point of view. I'm not saying I'm a miracle worker and I'm going to walk in and everyone's going to be unanimous on everything, but the state Supreme Court has a danger that it has a reputation that everyone there is fighting. And I know I've mentioned before that there's a lack of communication. And what I mean by that is the public looks at what this court writes. And this court is writing opinions that are bitter and pointed, and on both sides. On both sides. They're bitter and pointed against the other justices. I just say, in my view, the way I interpret it, I don't agree with them. And I think on the state Supreme Court, after 2-3 years when I'm there, I think it's going to be a softer, more collegial atmosphere between all of us. But I also think that I'm going to have an opportunity to really write and come to my stride putting out opinions that I'm thinking
Uh-oh.
mostly are going to be conservative.
I am
I'm
so
back.
sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm back. And now everyone would think I said some. So what I'll say is I said fantastically wonderful, amazing things while we were down. So it worked out
Yeah.
fantastic. So thank you for having me back.
Yes, I am so sorry about that. I think my internet just like hiccuped on me here.
Not a problem. It's all good. I was just saying how wonderful I would do on the Supreme Court once I get there. I think what I was saying was that I have an ability to really work collegially with people. And I
Yes.
think that even though I'm not going to be in a majority, there are a lot of cases that that's not going to necessarily be the case. And so it's twofold. One, I think I'll have an ability to pull people in and bring some sort of unanimity between the justices. But two, I think it's going to also give me an opportunity to be a strong voice for the more the more independent, impartial view of a court. And I like to tell people that I keep on my desk in my chambers a book written by Antonin Scalia, but it's all his dissents. And I think it's something that my family found. It's now even not in print. It's something I love because most of those dissents, well, one, he writes so well and so snarkily and so great. Two, they're now almost every one of his dissents. He then became a member of the majority. And so every one of those dissents is now a majority view. And I like to keep it as a view of, for me, while I may write a dissent now, and on the Supreme Court, I will be writing dissents, in a few years in that term, I hope to become part of the majority writing the majorities, the same views that I have in my dissents.
Yeah, and I like the way you said that too, the idea of being collegial with the other justices, people talking with each other, understanding each other with respect, I think is the key. And yeah, so it's good to hear that. I thank you for that. And again, I love your attitude about this whole thing too. And it brings me to the last question that I wanted to talk to you about. As you're traveling around the state, obviously, and I've talked to other statewide candidates who are running across Wisconsin as well. Obviously, a lot of challenges to travel all over the state, get to meet people, earn their votes. How do you balance that with your work and family life?
That's an excellent question. So I was actually thinking about that this morning when I was looking at my house and saying, wow, there's a lot of things that need to be dusted and cleaned and other things. So you're right. So for me, there's my family, there's my job that I have right now, and then there's a campaign that I have, and obviously a clean house and things like that come absolutely last. But
Right.
the way I balance it is I'm always strongly connected with my family. We communicate all the time. My husband is fantastic. My children are fantastic. My relatives, etc. My job on the Court of Appeals it's mostly working where you're reading and writing, and I can do that when I travel. My husband and I actually drove up somewhere near Toma and Greene County, and it was that whole weekend was about 6 to 9 hours in the car, and I read 6 hours of briefs.
Wow.
So that's how I keep going.
So using all that travel time to keep your day job.
Yes, and my weekends are filled with so I tell people the Court of Appeals is great in that I can work from home, do a lot of reading and writing. The Court of Appeals is horrible in that I can work from home, do a lot of reading and writing, because it'll be 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I'll say, oh, I can just do another hour, and that's okay. If you have a day job where you go home and leave it at your job, you're not doing that. But to me, that I'm still current, I'm keeping up, I'm actually ahead of where I'd like to be. And this weekend, I intend to work almost the whole weekend, just getting things caught up. Not caught up, but just catching up and moving ahead in my Court of Appeals position.
Yeah, I can imagine how challenging that is and I've been working from home for many years too. And I'm 100% in agreement with you. It is a blessing and a curse. And
Yes.
like you said it very well. The curse is when you get up at 5 a.m. and you do your usual morning routine, and then you get in front of that computer, or for me, when I get in front of that computer and I just work. And everything goes away until my wife comes home from work. Thank God I have her. She comes home from work, and that's my trigger to stop working.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing, is that you can keep putting in more and more time. And the Court of Appeals, unlike the circuit court was the same way, but you're on a bench and you're talking to the public. But the Court of Appeals, it never seems to end. We are constantly writing, we are constantly reading. I don't think we ever catch up. We would do that only towards the end, when you're leaving a position. Then you would have to get everything done. But right now, there's always another appeal that I can grab from somebody else and work on and write. And that's what I'm doing. It's never ending, but it's also wonderfully fantastic. And I will say too, this campaign has been wonderfully fantastic. I have loved meeting people. I've loved going around this state. I love your area, the Driftless area. I was there last year for other things. It's just a great state.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's one of the things that is a common thread from almost everyone who's running for statewide offices, how blessed it is to go and see all these different beautiful parts of the state. I tell people all the time, I've been to San Diego. It's beautiful there, but I will never trade it for this area of Wisconsin. It is so gorgeous here.
Absolutely. I did leave the state for 3 years when I went to law school at Georgetown. And while it's beautiful there, the weather is nice most of the time, except in the summer. There was just something that always brought me back to Wisconsin, and I would never, ever, ever leave. It's just, I love the state. Everything from snow to fall to everything.
And the cheese curds are the best.
Yes, I actually had some yesterday, so I will admit, yes. So yes.
Yeah, that's great. Well, one final question, the probably easiest one of all of them. For anyone in my audience who's interested in learning more about you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
So the best and the easiest way is my website is Judge Maria Lazar. That's MariaLazar, judgemarialazar.com. We have a ton of information on that site. There's background information about me, how I became a judge, why I became a judge. And the other thing we're doing too is we're starting a series of putting information and addressing specific legal issues and not how I'd rule on other cases, but just things that are important to know about a judge. And as you said, it's an interview. So there's that on my website as well. And I welcome anybody, if you've got events that you know of that you think I should go to, let us know. Events at Maria Lazar, judgemarialazar.com. And otherwise, hopefully I'll be in your areas. I'll see people. And I really want to really, really cover the state and go everywhere. I'm not giving up any part of Wisconsin. I'm not going to typical areas that people go to. I want to go and talk to the people who really maybe don't feel like they're listened to, and to explain to them, maybe boringly, why this court is so important.
Well, I think that's part of the challenge that you have as a judge, running for a justice. It's kind of nerdy, legal stuff is a little bit nerdy. There's only a handful of us who get interested in this kind of thing. So I'm sure it's very challenging, but God bless you for picking up the mantle and doing the hard work to try to win this seat on the Supreme Court. Anything else before I let you get out of here?
Yeah, I guess one thing that's really important, and I was at one event, and people don't realize judicial races, as I said, they're not political. So we're in April. My race is April 7, 2026. All these other races with the governor and everybody else that everyone's going around the state for, that's in November.
Right.
We are a nonpartisan race in April. So it's going to come up. It's right after Easter. So vote early, vote before you go on your Easter spring break. And it'll be a great night on April 7th. So I appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk to everyone.
Hi, thanks for checking out this episode. If you like this content, then please visit cooleyconservatives.com and click the Buy Me a Coffee option to leave us a tip. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Truth Social. Oh, and you can get our content in your email inbox once a week by subscribing at cooleyconservatives.com. Thanks again. Take care and God bless.
I want you, need you to know.